My name is Paul Panico. I'm the producer of Footloose, the musical at the Simi Valley Cultural Arts Center. If you'd like to learn more, listen to this conversation. So back, gosh, it was early 2000s, year 2000. I never did theater as a young person, and the long story is I was a member of a church, and they asked me to sing in a choir, and I'm a little OCD, so I needed to get lessons so I was better. And happened that the woman that I chose as a vocal director or vocal coach had been the music director for the first 9 shows at Five Star Theatrical, which used to be Cabrillo. I don't know if you're familiar with them. But anyway, so as we started to progress singing wise, she said, you ought to audition for a show. They always need guys. So I did. And I got in, and it kind of replaced, I used to do sports. That was my thing when I was young. And it was that same kind of feeling, it was a teamwork and putting things together, and then the show. So that's kind of how I started doing theater. I think pretty much it became my obsession immediately because I liked it, and it was fun, and it was around people that, were different, and they were artistic. And I always had an artistic side. My mom was very artistic. She did a lot of things. My grandfather's side, her father's side, very artistic people. And so I became very obsessed with it. So I continued to on and on and on, look for opportunities to perform. And then, I'm in a little bit of there's not much that I can do on a community level. So I thought, how do I do this myself? And so I started to do my own shows, and it just progressed there. So I go a little crazy, probably bit off more than I can chew many times, but it's all worked out. And, we've done, I think, pretty well for a guy who didn't know much. One of the things that I was lucky enough to have is I've surrounded myself and learned from people who really know. The Barry Pearl, who's the director of our show, became a friend 10 years ago when we did a show called 13 the Musical. We've revisited that. Of course, he's got a huge Broadway background. I've been introduced to all his friends. Louis Wilkenfeld at Five Star. He hired me to do a couple of shows there, and I watched him, and I consider him a friend, and I learned from watching him. So I've been able to acquire a little knowledge just by watching, because I've never had any classes. And I had a coach, an acting coach, and a guy who actually worked with Panic, directed for us, and actually performed in our show, Joshua Finkel. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but he's a local guy. And he had a Broadway career. Now he does mostly acting and whatnot, coaching. And he was great, very inspirational to me. So down the line, I've just been able to, have these great people. There are many more, but some of the big ones who have kind of inspired me to do a little bit more with my obsession. My process, the way I was taught to do it is I read through the script, and I get my ideas from reading through the script, and I really pull from my own personal experience. Things that obviously I think everybody does that, but that's how I do it. I don't try to pretend I'm somebody else. I try to be myself, how I would be if I was in that situation. And I think that just comes from, I'm not young. I have a lot of life experiences. So luckily, it's been okay. I think I do a reasonably good job. It's hard, I don't see myself, but I think, I think I've been able to kind of do it, if so to speak, in an easy way. I learned also, it's interesting because this journey with acting has taken me into commercial stuff, and I've been able to, my learning process is visual. Like I need to watch. That's how I learn. It's better that way. And I've been able to watch how things are done, and I see how other actors are acting. And like we always say, acting. If I think they're acting, then I lose interest. If I think that's how they really would be, it's interesting to me. So I try to be my person, or performing the way I would perform that role if I was that person, if that makes sense. I don't know. That's my way process. It's not technical, but it's my own. Truly, it's because it's live. Because things happen. You never know what might happen on any given day, and it's always different. A reaction is different. Typically, in our opening night, I had a little faux pas, so to speak, and life goes on, and you just continue on, and and I think the audience loves that realness to it. Personally, I think they get a kick out of it. Sometimes if they notice, most times they don't, but if they notice, they get a kick out of it. They know we're not perfect, and it just continues on because you can't stop it. It's like a rolling ball. It's coming downhill, and you got to keep going. So I think that's just the charm of it, and it's thrilling to be in an audience with a great performance. I mean, I find it thrilling, and so I think most people do. I don't know that we do enough of it, especially in California, but I don't know. It's just to me, it's just totally thrilling and unpredictable. Our main goals and why we created Panic. Initially, when I started Panic, I had a co-partner, Bob Wybazall, very gifted writer, and he acted on a community level with me. We did some shows early on at the junior colleges and whatnot, and we kept going out for parts in local community theaters. And we were finding out that we weren't in their group. And some of these community theaters, and I don't want to say it in a bad way, but they have kind of a group they're accustomed to dealing with, and they generally, even if you're better, they pick their friends. So we decided we're going to just open up our own company to do our own thing. I actually did a cabaret once on that very subject about not getting picked. So like that, to the song "I Want to Be a Producer" from that show. Anyway, yeah. So that's how it started, and our goal was to do shows that people don't do very frequently, because as there are 35 renditions of Addams Family going on at the same time, or Shrek, and to be perfectly frank, we couldn't afford to do those huge big shows. So we've picked things that have been kind of marginal, that aren't ever done or rarely done, and like this current show, Footloose, I haven't seen it done in many, many years. I come to find out that Simi Valley did it several years back, and I did a version of it 10 years ago, a not so good version. So that was our goal, to do things that aren't done all the time, and we try to match the community. I think this show, Footloose, matches the community that we're performing it in, and so that's kind of the rationale with Panic. Number one, Michelle Elkin is brilliant, and her choreography brings this to life like it wasn't the first time I did it. She is a tremendous choreographer. She demands a lot. She gets a lot, and the kids love her. So yeah, it was a no-brainer when I considered it. I was toying with some other options, but Simi Valley is a bedroom community, and I think they're familiar with Footloose. They're familiar with the music, and once they see the dancing, they'll fall in love with that. So I think those are, of course, and Barry's always, one of my number one people to go to as far as directing. He's very specific, and he makes all the scenes better. So yeah, but mainly it's because I knew she could do just an incredible job choreographing it. I did not do this the first time I did the show, but I was reading the writer's notes at the very beginning, and what he said was, this show is not about dancing. This show is about a boy who's lost someone and a father who's lost someone. And he said, replace the word dancing every time you hear it with the word forgiveness. So although there is incredible dancing and some great familiar music, it really is the struggle of parents and their kids, and trauma and forgiveness. And so I think that really tells the story about Footloose. It's not earth shattering, but I happen to love the message. I wouldn't change a thing. It's a story that people can relate to. He as I think we all know, he's lost his son in a terrible accident due to an abuse of a controlled substance, be it drugs or alcohol. And he's got another daughter who I probably feel she's a little bit angry and also confused because he's turned the whole, not only her life, but the whole town in a way that doesn't suit most teenage kids. And so she's rebelling, and he's confused because he thinks he's doing the right thing. He sings a song about that. You know, because he's a religious guy, how can he get this town in shape so we don't have this kind of accident again? Because it was horrible for everybody. Small community in, you know, I say Texas, but it could be any small town somewhere, I would guess Midwest. So the beginning, he's under control. You see it start to unwind. His daughter becomes more and more rebellious, and he finally loses it, and to the point where he is so angry that he does things that he would never ever even consider doing and has never done in his life. And then this young boy, at that point where he's lost control, he has that's heartfelt conversation with this young boy who's come to town, who has experienced similar disappointment and devastation in his personal life. And they have a kind of a meeting of the minds where he senses this, that he's might have been taking the wrong path. And then there's the redemption. He realizes he hasn't done it the right way. Even though that happens, and there's that moment where he allows dancing to continue, he says to his wife, "I'm still not sure I've done the right thing." So he's done what he had to do. He's willing to continue on and change his ways, but he's still not absolutely sure, even though. So there's a lot of conflict in him, but it's a happy ending. It's funny. People always say, "Do you get nervous?" I don't get nervous. It really is, for me, it's like a sport. It's like that little butterflies, but it's not nervous butterflies. It's just that excitement of the and to me, like with this show, it's the joy on the faces of these kids. I love to see the pure joy of them doing what they love. We are lucky because it took a while to find this group, but we've found 20 odd kids who have a genuine joy for theater. They're smiling, they're connected, and we're different ages, but there's a great connection with these kids. That synergy that really, I think, really propels them to a level that people want to see. They are truly happy to be doing what they're doing. So that joy, my first scene is I walk in and I'm facing them. They're all sitting there staring at me, and I look at their faces. I can't help but smile because they're so joyful. I don't know. That's in my little weird way. That's so gratifying to see them do that. And many of these kids, I can assure you, many of these kids are going to go on and do bigger and better and greater things. They're so talented. It's ridiculous, very inspiring, and sometimes it's a little, like, ooh, what am I doing? What am I doing with all these youngsters? It's pretty cool. Well, we have co-directors, Barry and Michelle. Maybe you know who Barry is, but he was Duty in the original movie Grease. Has a Broadway career that spans back to when he was 11, I believe. He auditioned for his first Broadway show at 11. Bye Bye Birdie, the original cast of Bye Bye Birdie. He was a replacement for Randolph McAfee. Interesting story, and I think you might be talking to him later. I'll let him tell that story. But then he went on from that to do multiple Broadway shows, national tours of Grease. Interestingly, Barry is amazing in the fact that he dates and times he remembers with great clarity. And it's interesting to tell a story. I've always said I would love to have him write a book because he remembers everything and the connections he's made through the years. And he knows like just about anybody you can name. He's met them or worked with them or had some connection with them. But, like just an interesting story. When he did Grease, the national tour, Travolta was in it, and Travolta played Duty. and he played another role, which was kind of interesting. And he actually has the playbills of all the shows he's ever been in. So I saw Travolta's bio when he did that was his first production. I think that's what Barry told me, his first production or national tour. And then, of course, and I said, "What do you think of John when you met him?" He goes, "I knew he was going to be a star." So, so his stories are phenomenal. You'll get a chance to talk with him. I think you'll find that out. His stories are phenomenal. Anyway, so that's Barry. Michelle, I met. Michelle Elkin was the choreographer several times in shows in Five Star, and I watched her work, and then I saw her do Something Rotten there, which I thought it's the first time I'd ever seen that show. It was amazing. So we had touched bases from time to time, and she said at some point she would love to choreograph for us. So moving out of the pandemic, Barry and I wanted to revisit 13 the musical. So we wanted it to be a little bit better, than it was the first time. Although it was a great cast, we wanted to do something a little bit different. So I hired Michelle to do that. So that was her first gig with us. After that, and that was coming out of the pandemic. After that, we asked her to do this show, and she's been nothing less than, spectacular. She's very specific, very tough on the kids. They love it, and they work very hard for her. She's inspiring to them, and she's a great teacher. So, and then the other thing that I didn't see, because she added some of the directorial information that she's good at when we did 13, but she really upped it this time, and she's very, very smart about choices and why she's asking for those choices, which I think as an actor is really great. Like if you why don't I come this way? It doesn't make sense, and this is why. And so she's very good at that. And I was surprised. I didn't see that side of her. So they're a great team, and they love each other. And they're like, they're two peas in a pod kind of. I think they work very well together. Now that's an advantage. So that's my guys, my team. Moving past like the director, the choreographer, and the kids, who are all great. We have an incredible band. A couple of things, like, because as you know, theater doesn't happen with just a couple of people. It takes a village, so to speak. And we have a band comprised of 5 musicians who have played for me before, once or twice. My musical director, Jeff Gibson, I met in a production of Godspell at a church in Thousand Oaks once, and I've sung in church with him, and he's an amazing man. Aside from the fact that he's a brilliant player, he's an amazing man, very conscientious, works very hard at making it the best he can possibly make it. And that goes with just about every person that's playing with us. We had the luxury of having, on Sunday, we have 2 drummers, one, Katoshi, who we've met along the way, plays in church with us sometimes. But last Sunday we had Dan Gillum, who is a local Simi Valley resident. And I just say, look at his resume and go, holy, that guy has played with everybody. And he was gracious enough for the small fee that we pay to play in our band. So it was spectacular to have that level. And then, of course, we have people behind the scenes. There's 2 gals, Paige Lauder, who's done our graphics, and many of the things behind the scene that are just invaluable. And Allison Mahay. Allison is a young woman who's has a history in theater, but she's actually a talent agent, and she's done many things, innumerable things, to help us get this done and getting up and running, and been a total supporter. So those are the kinds of things that that you just can't even envision. And then another really nice thing is at Simi Valley, they're close to a school called Santa Sue, which is a theater arts school, and very well known. And we use there's a young man who's doing our sound, who's a graduate from that school. He also is a player, and I think he has a band, but he's doing our sound, done an excellent job. And we have people on our spot, a little Melissa. I've known her since she was a little tiny girl, and now she's all grown up and out of school, and she's running our spot, and all from the community, Santa Sue graduates. And it's so nice to see everybody rallying around and helping. Just it goes on. I mean, lighting guy Ian Kelly from another community theater locally, done a lot of work, and he did an outstanding job for us. So it's totally fun. It's just nice to see that all come together. Sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking, but it like when I say it takes a village, it really does. It's just incredible how it comes together, and it somehow always does. Why is it relevant today? Well, I think always. I mean, obviously, we always have that struggle as parents to make sure our kids, go down the path that we would like to see them go down. And there are always kids who, make decisions that are not good decisions, and they sometimes get away with it, sometimes they don't, and it leaves, like grieving is for the people who are left behind. It's if you're, I mean, if you believe in a higher spirit, they're gone and in a better place, but we're stuck here remembering them, and that's the hardest part. So, it's protecting ourselves, and we're parents are protecting their kids, but they're protecting themselves either, because if something bad happens, they know that, the repercussions of that. So there's nothing worse, for a parent to lose a child. There's what could be worse. So I think that'll always be relevant. And of course, today we have all kinds of drug issues, which are horrible. So we hope that's never enters into people's lives like it is today, and hopefully it'll change. But it probably won't. So we'll have to deal with this. And this is a show that does deal with a pretty serious subject. I think it's very, very relevant. People we must go to support local theater, number one. As you know, probably Panic is a 501c3. We're a privately funded theater company. We rely on the sales. Thankfully, Simi Valley is very generous in the way they handle their participants, and they have things in place to make it reasonably cost efficient. But as you know, the theater is expensive, so that's one reason on the economic side. The second reason for me is it's just fun. It's a fun way to spend an afternoon. It's a fun, uplifting show. You'll leave smiling. You'll leave singing the tunes, and you'll fall in love with some of these characters. They're really, really good. And I go out afterwards and speak to the audience that remains, and they're shocked at they're like, "Where did you come from? What theater were you at before? What theater are you going to?" We're Panic Production. We're doing 4 weekends in Simi Valley. And we may get somebody that says, "Hey, we'd like you to do it at our theater," but that may not happen. 4 weekends is all we got to bring a little bit of joy to people's lives, and I think that we do that every time we perform. From my perspective, we are very friendly. I know that sounds like trite, but we do. We try to make everyone comfortable. We give them what they need, in keeping with what we could actually provide. It's a safe place. We don't judge. We don't bicker, argue. That's not part of who we are. Our productions are, and I can't think of any time we've ever had a problem with, in the many productions we've actually had. We've not had any problems. So it's a good place for people. I don't know if this is relevant, but I'll say it anyway. One of a couple of boys in the cast, they're partners, and they both came up to me one day and they said, "Hey, I just want to tell you thank you." I'm like, "What for?" They said, "Well, we love being in your show, but we love how we're accepted here." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we've been to other theaters, and we hug and whatever from time to time, and it's we've been kind of called out on it." And I'm like, "That's weird. This is theater, that we accept everybody. That's the greatness of theater. Everybody's welcome. There's nobody that's not, if you're nice." And so I thought that was a great compliment. I felt really good about that. And of course that's their first time participants with our group. And I think if they don't come back and audition again, they'll certainly tell all their friends. And that's the kind of reputation we want to have. We want to make sure that everybody knows it's a safe place. We take that seriously. Michelle is adamant about making sure the actors are safe, they're comfortable. There's no weird stuff going on, and it's a happy place. And that's kind of the way we view things. So I think from a creative perspective, I don't interfere with what they do. I'm a producer, so I try to get what they need, and within reason sometimes. But I give them the creative freedom, and they do what they want. I don't interfere. I don't do that. I don't know enough to do what they do. They know what they're doing, and I give them that trust. What we've seen over the last few years is the decline in places where the arts are available, and that starts in the schools. And so, we've tried to reach out to schools, and we've made ourselves available to them. We've done some fundraisers for them because I think it's pay it forward, and what have you. And quite frankly, as you may or may not know, but fundraising is very difficult. I don't have a hard time asking for money. We certainly, if somebody wants to give us money, that's great. It hasn't been a focus. We've been able to handle these first 2 shows that we've done since the pandemic without a problem. But, moving forward, we will need some help. So, I think it's, I don't know that there's a negative. People give money for all kinds of reasons. It's not, I don't know if it's world changing. Maybe it is. For some people, it probably is, but it's a great thing. It's like anything else you do. You pick your the things that appeal to you. There's many things that I give to, and Panic, of course, I give a lot to them. But yeah, I think it's important. I think it's it affects a lot of people in a very positive way. And there's never anything wrong with supporting positive things, and I think that's what we do. Just with what the actors do. We interestingly, because starting with our rehearsal process, we were in a little shopping center. We had rented a dance studio, so that it's a small little dance studio, and we were able to provide them income for the time that we rehearsed there. So that was a benefit to them. While we're in that community, the group was enjoying meals in that shopping center, and there was a liquor store, a very cute man, George's Liquor, and his name was not George, but he would give us little special deals and whatnot. So we were supporting him. Moving forward into the theaters, of course, what's better than a night out, seeing a show and having, a nice dinner. And Simi Valley has a bunch of nice places to eat all around. So yeah, it does. And here's what's interesting, and I did not know this, but I've been told this by Simi Valley. Our first weekend, so we've done 2 shows. The people at the box office asked everyone who comes to the show, have they been to the theater before? And they said to me, 80% of the people who have come have never been to that theater before. So we're bringing new people to that theater, and when they get there, if they get there a little bit early, they're either experiencing Simi Valley for the first time, looking at places that, there's some, like I said, great little restaurants locally, and enjoying their visit to Simi Valley. So it helps the community in that respect. And they're pretty supportive. So I think that's all, it all ties in. And my name is Paul Panico. I play Reverend Shaw in the production of Footloose. I've also produced the show. I actually also designed the set and helped build the set, which is an aside, which I love to do, and I hope you like it. Our call to action for this particular production is you will walk away smiling. You will be happy. It's a great show. I've had people say, I cried at moments, but I ended up leaving ecstatic, happy, dancing, and just really enjoying the evening. And that's what we want to give to you, is that feeling of just absolute joy. The cast emanates that, and I think you'll find that as well. See you at the theater.